World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Good afternoon. This is Tony Rogers, your host for Urbanology, The Art of War. I hope all is well. It's a cold day. We're getting close to those days where you have to bundle up when you run outside. It's winter is coming, which is kind of like how things always go. We have 4 seasons, and each one has its own uniqueness, which is one of the great things about living in New York, because you get a chance to experience 4 seasons. Some other places, you don't always have that luxury. Today, I am really happy to have a friend for many years, over 60 years, on. He has been seen throughout the world as an elder, and since he's about a year or so older than I am, I guess I may be in that class myself. But Professor James Smalls and I have gone back a long period of time. A lot of his comments have been controversial and all of those types of things, which is probably why we stayed friends for so long, because in many cases he said things that other people wouldn't want to say. And between James Smalls and Dr. Jeffries, I began to understand my role and relationship as an African who was born in America, and I will always thank them for helping me see that. So please welcome a person, an elder, a person who has been teaching for so many years, has so much knowledge. And if you don't want to answer to the question, don't make He will give you no, as they say, no chaser, straight, no chaser. Professor James Smalls. Your sound is off.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Brother Tony.
Hey,
It's an
Professor
honor.
James Smalls. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, my brother. We've been at this where we both had hair and there was no gray. And it's been many years. But first of all, I just want to have the listeners send their prayers out to Dr. Jeffries. I understand that he's had some health complications, and universal prayer is always helpful. So
Yes.
If you keep him in mind, Dr. J helped us in many different ways over the years to understand certain things, and he is a treasure. At one point, as I have mentioned to you, James, it would have been great and may still be great to have him on the show so people can see him. But there's so many ways that he's been documented. I'm sure that his legacy will last for a long period of time. But
Yes.
But James, there may be some young people or some older people who might not know who Professor James Smalls is. So every time we have this, I know it's redundant, but just briefly let people know who Professor James Smalls is and what he does. Yourself.
Yes, I'm a friend and brother, Brother Tony Rogers. Like Tony said, for over 60 years. We go back. I grew up in South Carolina. I had a meeting with Malcolm X at 16 while I visited New York, and that transformed my life a lot. I was in a very activist family. Went in the U.S. military at 17, and then went active at 18. Came to New York a year after Malcolm was assassinated, less than a year, joined his organization. 6 months later, I was the imam of the Muslim Mosque, Inc., founded by Malcolm X. Made the trip to Mecca, became a Hajj, worked in the Harlem community politically. That's how I met Tony. He was working in the Black Panther Party. I was in the OAAU. I think we had taken over a building or something on 25th. Exactly where, because we always had these different encounters. But I've just been an activist in the Black community for years. I taught at City College for 18 years, was an administrator there for 16. And my life has just been devoted to Africa, the Caribbean, the Central South America, wherever African peoples are, to further our notion of Pan-Africanism, which simply is African unity. I consider myself an African world nationalist. I put God first, race second, family third.
Well, again, I've learned a lot by, listening and talking to you. Matter of fact, I'm now a chief in the northern village of Ghana.
Yes, congratulations! I saw your postings, and that's a beautiful area of Ghana. A lot of the people from that area are Muslims.
Yeah,
and a lot of people don't know, about 40% of us who came over here as enslaved Africans were Muslims before we came. We had about 25% who were Christians before we came. That's something we don't know, and we should study a little more in our history.
Now, you have done a lot of stuff. Matter of fact, at one time, I'm not sure whether you still have it, but you had a hotel, you and Dr. J.
Yeah, we still own a hotel in Cape Coast, Ghana. It's not at its optimal, but it's still open and running at the moment. We have it on the market for sale. I wish we didn't have to sell it, but when you get this age, you can't do what you used to do. But going back and forth to Ghana for 40 years, taking people home to really do their finding of themselves as we found ourselves in the streets of New York, fighting for freedom for our people. And that's the greatest joy of my life. Every year I take the pilgrimage to Africa, sometimes twice a year, take up to sometimes 100 people to really just go home and realize that we're one people, we are universal people. America is our geopolitical place. Africa is our race.
Right.
We can keep that straight and in context, we'll be fine. When somebody says I'm an African American, okay, America is my geopolitical place. That's real. I live here, I eat here, I work here, I vote here. And Africa is my race. That's universal.
Right.
And
And
in the world, I take that with me.
that's why I always tell people I am an African that was born in America. I mean, but you, I have to get the name of your hotel.
Sana, Sanaa, Sana Lodge.
I'll get it from you.
Yes.
Because we, every December, well, a lot of stuff happens in December, as you know, but every December we take, groups to the north for the festival that, I help put together. This is the 4th year now.
Wow.
And kind of pattern after Harlem Week, creating workshops and bringing people, elected officials and business people and the like with music and entertainment and all of that stuff. But in the North, because as you know, based on the complexion and the concept that has been in the North since the whole slavery thing started, the colonizers kind of left the North to the side. It's almost when people go to New York, they said, don't go to Harlem because you don't know what's going to happen in Harlem. Stay down here. Stay. So most people, even in Accra, which I thought was interesting, when you talk about the North, for people who in Accra, they never been.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I started pilgrimage to the North about 30 years ago, going to Boga, Tawa, Paga, Tamale, Seliga. And I was taking the government on their first journeys up there, because if you didn't live there, they didn't go. So in Panafest, just 25 years ago, we started. They still do it now. Taking them to the North was a new thing for the very government officials themselves, because they were from the region they were from, and it was always a kind of a tete-a-tete with the northern region. And so once they started going up, they did it this past summer. I missed it because I was late getting into the country. But you're right. If you're in Kumasi, you're in Accra and Cape Coast, and you're talking about the North, you may as well be talking about New York.
Right. And not only New York, Harlem and New York.
Yeah. So, and it's very interesting. And those, the same country, the form of government, especially at the local level, was very different in the North than it is in the central and the southern sector of the country.
Well, the new president, John Mahama, is from the North. So they're starting to do a number of things, and he's very close to our brother, Torre. So there's going to be some interesting things going on, which is why it's important to come together, because the way this country is going, we might have to, run out, because we'll be put into political prisoners and all of that, because the Africa is not having a lot of this stuff anymore. And if we're Africans, just like they did the Japanese,
and they're not above doing that. Sister Arikana, the former ambassador from the AU to America, just completed, I think, a 2-week tour with 700 diasporans in Burkina Faso. 700. And so that kind of shook people up a bit. And the people I talked to on the tour, they had a wonderful time. And the president did meet with them the day before they left and gave a talk to them. So that was also wonderful.
Well, again, my brother, much of my clear understanding of my role as an African born in America had come through you and Dr. Jeffries and all of the people that you introduced me to, all of the speakers, all of the people that came and did lectures. It was it was something that, you know, I had no idea of. I didn't even know why I was studying. I was studying philosophy because I, for some reason, knew about it when some of these young white kids were having
Mhm.
trouble, and they were smart. And I, you know, I,
That was
I
your
was on the
gift.
GI Bill, but and
Yeah.
it was you. You said, you know why you understand this stuff? And I said, well, I don't know. It just made sense to me. He said, you need to come to this lecture, you know. And that's how it started. Me going to the lectures to understand. I think it was Dr. Ben who said, you understand it because it's you. Just like Kwame
Mhm.
said, you know,
Mhm.
I'm not African because I was born in Africa. I'm African because Africa was born in me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
So
you were always an activist all of your life, Tony. I mean, I met you as an activist just out of your teens, really.
yeah,
Um,
you was trying to stop me from selling Black Panther papers on the
yeah, because I thought
campus.
y'all were coming to take over our stuff. At that time, I was looking at the party as having too much Marxism in it, and I wasn't a Marxist. Right? And people said progressive, but I was not a Marxist. I was an African nationalist. I call a dirty nationalist, right? And but I had the same problem with Charles Barron. We had the same kind of encounter selling the paper on, and at that time we considered that the nationalist territory. You get permission to come in our territory. But you were quite an activist for our community, quite a political leader, an economic leader. I remember when you first started Blackfrica, watching the political and economic things that you and Brother Lloyd was doing together, your contribution at that, especially the economic level and the business level in the Harlem community, most people don't know about. They saw what was happening. They did not see you guys behind the scene making it happen. And that's
It's been
your
an
story.
interesting journey, James, you know, from 1970, well, it passed 1974 because we were doing stuff, you know, with the Panthers. But
Mhm.
from 1974 to now, that's what, 52 years. A lot of the work that went on making these hotels and all of the stuff that's
Mhm.
opening, the Civil Rights Museum and the Schomburg and all of the different types of features that were not necessarily as prominent then, and the new ones, you know, the Civil Rights Museum and the
Mhm.
Studio Museum and all of those types of things. People could not visualize that. I couldn't, you know, but it was the Percy Suttons and the Hope Stevens and many of the people who kind of led that allowed for Lloyd and I to fall into it. But I
Mhm.
you know what 125th Street was looking like
Oh,
in
of course.
1974.
Listen, I was running those streets since '63, so I could tell you. And I saw the transformation, and I saw the work that you and Lloyd did. We were all very young men then, and healthy and sharp, and
A
people
lot of
listened.
energy.
Yeah. And you had some good backers in the Basil Patterson and the Charlie Rangel and the Carl McCall and Dave Dinkin. The people don't even realize we knew them as older politicians, but you and I knew them when they were younger activist
Yeah,
politicians.
yeah. I
Um,
remember when I was very young, but when and Percy and Charlie went up against Adam Clayton Powell,
mhm,
you know, which everybody, you know, it's funny how politics go because Adam had done so much. It was so loved, and then when they tried to hang him, you know, and put him into, you know, an issue where people would think, oh wow, he's not as honest as we thought he was, or he.
right.
That's when Percy and Charlie kind of jumped on that, you
Right.
know,
And
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 said, we
I,
got
I
some
was
new
Adam's
stuff.
bodyguard. I was one of his bodyguards during that time with Suna Malik and David White. And I remember with Aura Mobley and what's our sister? The building on 124th Street is named for her. We formed, when Charlie ran against Adam that first time, we defeated them because we formed the Congress Party for the re-elect of Powell. And we defeated the Democratic Party. So we did what Mandani just did, right? And Adam
Which
won.
we're going to talk about in a minute.
Yeah. And Adam won that election and shocked everybody. But it was the Black women leadership in Harlem that formed that party. And John Young worked with us, who was at Haru at the time.
Okay, yeah.
And John was our leader. And we pulled it off. But a lot of people got upset because Adam would not change parties. I didn't think he should change party. It didn't make political sense, even though the Democrats had turned on him. He had more power staying in the Democratic Party when he went back to Washington. And even when he went back to Washington, I was involved in sneaking him back into Washington. Remember, the sheriff wanted to arrest him. And so his son Skipper, Malcolm's sister Ella, myself, and brother Willie Stock, we plotted how to get Adam into Congress without him getting arrested, and pulled it off. So we sneaked him into Congress. I'm not going to say how he was disguised. Skipper was in the bathroom with his suit and clothing. Brother Stock escorted him right past the sheriff. They said hello to the sheriff and went inside. Adam changed, and when he came out of the bathroom, he was swamped by reporters. So he told the reporters to give him a chance to go inside and see his friends. He stayed in there about 2 or 3 hours, and he came out and he got swamped again. And he told the guy, "Well, let a man go to the bathroom and take a pee." He used another word. And he went in the bathroom, and Skipper's there with the new change of clothing. He walks right out, right past the same reporters who don't recognize him, walk right past the same sheriff and the deputies on the Capitol step, get in the car with Brother Stock, drive him back to the airport, fly him to Canada, and then he went back to Bimini. That's how that got pulled off.
That's an interesting story. I didn't even, when we start talking about stuff, man, there's so much stuff that has taken place. I mean, I know, because at that time I was being groomed by the Democrats, so the Charlies and, and so I know that Charlie and Percy had something to do with the count. the second with this, and when Charlie won, I know that there was a lot of little stuff going on.
Oh, there was stuff going on, but at that time, Adam had discovered that he had the cancer, and he just didn't care.
Yeah,
and because I remember the day Ella and Brother Stock went down to Bimini to see him, and he said, he wasn't that really interested. He just ran, but he realized he had the cancer. He realized it was terminal. And so he was just, continuing to fight. That's why he never turned himself into a silly little case that didn't have any real heavy legal ramifications with that woman's suit.
Same with Adams.
It was a matter of principle.
It's a card that has been played for us in many ways.
Yes.
And just to go into where we are now, I believe Eric Adams had the most reflective administration of the city of New York that any other mayor has ever had. When you look at his administration, when you look at his talks, and you see the people who he was surrounded with, it was women, it was Asians, it was Hispanics,
African American.
African. I mean, and when you look at the police chief, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah. The reason why he had and the programs, the programs that were going on, and that's why he got hit. Matter of fact, since all of this is in my mind controlled by a few, even the Trump supporting him was not more so to support him, but it was to discredit him.
Yeah,
it was a way to put him in a situation where he no longer had the credibility to deal with the forced charges or the BS charges. Because if he had just said no and went through the court, it would have drug him down anyway, and he would have gone broke. And
but remember, no charges was ever brought.
But
no indictment ever
but you still had to deal with legal stuff. You still had to be in court. You still have to deal with the fight. And and I do believe, however, if he had done that, he would be mayor. If all of that, you just think about it. If Trump hadn't intervened, and this issue about this trip with Turkey had not came about, there would be no reason why most of the people who voted for him the first time would have voted for him again.
Well, if you and I were there and involved in Dave's first and second election, Brother Dinkins, and we saw the sabotage in that second election from the
Yeah,
party
yeah,
like nothing you've ever seen. We were on the inside of this stuff. I was in the
yeah,
Martin Luther King Club. I was running with Charlie, and then we saw the double cross of David Dinkins.
yeah.
And Dave didn't have an inclusive a group working with him as Adams had. Most people don't realize the city budget is $119.5 billion. The capital budget over a 10-year period is $173.15 billion. That's what this was all about. Who's going to get the contracts? Who's going to get the consignments? Who's going to be the vendors? And Adams had split it up with every ethnic nation in the city. But there's primarily two ethnic nations that have been in control for all those years, and they want control back. I don't think they're going to get it, because I would have voted for Adams if I still live in the city. But Mondani, I don't think he's the chump they think he is. They think they can play this young man, but they thought they could play Adams, and that didn't work.
Right.
And then now they think they're going to play this young man, and I think he's got a good, strong group of people around him, especially them sisters. They look like an army standing up there. When he was talking about his transition team, I go like, okay, somebody's going to be in trouble.
Well, one of the things that my daughter is 22, and we would have conversations, and the things that a lot of young people were saying were things that I think we said many years ago when there was a change. I do know, James, and you know, that there's this whole Black Asian thing has never been as it was at one time. I mean, through some of the struggles, many groups came together, which is why there was this divide and conquer issue.
In the 60s and early 70s, we had a strong alliance, Blacks, Asians, Latinos, and that got split. I remember that big meeting in Yankee Stadium with Mayor Beam and his partner Badillo. And that whole movement was designed to split the Black and Latino community, and they were successful. And we saw a similar thing
with
Asian
Herman.
community. Right.
Herman did a number on people,
Yeah. And so we've never really brought that kind of coalition back. Now, if Mondani was able to do it, then I'll say God bless them. But I don't want to be played out of pocket, because Black people have been played out of pocket too often when we try to hold the ethical, moral high ground. Even though Eric was Black, if he was morally inappropriate, we say, okay, we'll deal with we're not going to give you the pass. But then someone else come in and says, and we give them a pass. And yet they don't reach the same, even the standards that we pull our own people down for. And so I tend to go race, then ideology, race first, ideology second with me, because I know how politics works in America, especially in New York City. It is about ethnic protection. If you cannot protect your group, no one else will. And the African American group have had a historical experience of everybody feeling we should be their doormat with no compensation. And I think those days are over, because we represent 23%, the Black population. When we unite with our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, we're the second largest ethnic group in the city next to the white folks. We can make sure you lose or win any election we want to. So when you win, you better understand you won because we were in that count. But if you don't give us the service and the opportunities to share running the government with you, then you get one term and we bring you down.
And one of the things that is good about having programs like this is that we can say things that cannot be said in other areas, because Soul City is a Black-owned entity, and they make it the best way they can without a lot of help. So
Yes.
it's a struggle, but it provides a platform for us to have conversations that people really, really should hear. I want to be optimistic. I believe, James, that all things happen for a reason. And of course, you have to play with fire in any type of political arena that you're going to be in. My focus at this point, I'm dealing with anybody who I feel that can help the causes that I'm looking at, which is to help people, whether it's the chamber, the tourism board, or many of the other types of things, because um, I realize I can't save the world, but I can help those people, those networks that have been with me for so many years, and to make sure that at least there's a voice. Because a lot of new people is what have you done for me lately? You know, they don't know about the James Smalls, and they don't know about the struggles that we went through on 125th Street, and many of the things that allowed for these openings to take place. That you know that has to be used as a sounding board for any newbies. You know, if not, you're going to it's going to reinvent the wheel, because the stuff that we're talking about has happened before.
Right. There's nothing the new mayor has promised that everyone running for mayor didn't promise. Now, he did it with more eloquent than most people do, but there's not a single thing that a housing law, bringing on the cost of housing, better food prices, and on and on. Everybody says that. The question is, are you going to organize the city government in a way that all of its ethnic nations that participate in the city gets the opportunities that you're promising and that you're able to offer to others? And what has been the historical, redlining for us have been a historical reality. And so redlining has not gone away. It has just taken on new names when it comes to African Americans. We're still dealing with the redlining, places we can't go, places we can't buy, banks that won't give us loans. Someone who has just entered the country has a better chance of getting a loan than someone who's born and raised here, because my credit score interferes with my ability to get this loan. This other person don't have a credit score, but he can get the loan. I don't understand the logic on the rationale. I understand the logic and the rationale. There's a fear of the indigenous African American. I mean, indigenous in terms of those of us who came over here during the slavery process, and the few of us who was here before. That massive population in this country is something close. They say 45 million, but I'll put it at 65 million, because they're afraid. They've never taken account of our people. And they admit we've never done a true census of the African American population. So how do you then number my population? And so we know we have cities in this country where we are the majority, 90%, 80% in many major cities. But the forces that comes against us doing Jim Crow are still locked in place, especially those economic barriers. And see, that's where you and Lloyd and those who work with you, y'all were very successful in Harlem in breaking the economic barriers. And I saw the work you did. I saw the work we just did with a young brother. I don't remember his name. He opened a cigar bar, beautiful cigar bar on 8th Avenue off of 135th. And he was having real trauma. And I think I called you and you called Lloyd, and you all worked it out. He was at my house for my birthday and brought me a birthday card to thank me for what, Lloyd did for him. Somebody else would have dismissed that young man. He had no place to go. But he had a concept for a beautiful business, which is, an up-to-date. I don't smoke cigar, but I go hang out there, maybe puff on one, just to be in the community. Things like that. I've watched what y'all did with the museums, bringing the cultural institutions alive in Harlem again. And people don't understand that. They may go into a Schomburg, don't understand who did the fight to save the Schomburg. They go into a studio museum, but don't understand who fought to bring the finances, to get the political things right for the studio museum. the people like yourself and your partners, you don't get that opportunity with everybody in City Hall. There's some people in City Hall, they ain't gonna even give us a chance to walk through that door and have a conversation with them. You have to have the right people to walk into City Hall and have that conversation, present your proposal, and hope for an opportunity that it gets read and acted upon in terms of the kind of funds and support you need to build community institutions. The same thing with those who are fighting for housing. The mayor can't dictate anything about housing prices. There's a board that deals with that, and there's a Senate and an Assembly and the City Council. Now, you have to line all them up. You have to be a good politician because you got to maneuver and weave those strings together if you want to make changes in housing policy. So we have to be careful of what we think we hear and what we need to know about city governance. And I always tell people, I've always been one for civics. When they took civics out of school, and for the young people, civics taught us how the local governments work. And when they took civics out of school, it was a disservice to the next generation because we don't know how city government work. We don't know how community boards work. We don't know how school boards work. We don't know how to implement your authority from a community into these institutions. We don't know how the different housing boards work. Who makes the decision what rent is? Who makes the decision what land use is going to be? All these things are in our community. And to organize our people to understand that you have a responsibility to learn how to run your community. And that means you have to learn the basic civics of your community. And then you have to understand the foundation of how you get food, clothing, shelter. You have to understand why you got to own and control economic, politics, culture, where you live. Retail business at least, but retail and wholesale when possible. I mean, that makes the reality if you're going to survive in an urban setting, especially one like New York. And that's why I always have a fear, because other ethnic groups haven't done very well by the Black American ethnic group. You know, we've done well. We always take a chance and support this one. We've taken our chance and throw behind the Comos in the early days, you know, running back up and forth to Albany. But we had some power then. We had a power group coming out of the MLK Democratic Club and the Samuels Democratic Club. We don't have that type of power anymore, you know? So there's things we've got to teach our young people that they've got to learn about our immediate history, especially in Harlem and Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx. They really need to learn that history of those people.
Well, which is one of the reasons why, James, as much as possible, with the help of Soul City, we need to have these types of conversations, because I'm not sure that there are a lot of places that this type of conversation is being had that people can see and understand. But one of the things, I don't want to lose time because we can talk for hours, but on Sunday, November the 16th, you're going to be the special guest speaker at an event that's taking place at in the Bronx. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. That's the Agunda, and I always get the last name Rua, R-Y-U.
Rua.
And it's the 5th annual celebration. And this is most of my comrades from the different dojos, martial arts dojos around the cities, who I've been involved in, like you, for over 50 years. And we're going to be talking about the history of the martial arts in the Black community, in our community. A lot of people don't know how dynamic the martial artists have been to the development of the Harlem community and the Brooklyn community, but especially the Harlem community. And this is taking place at 2848 Bainbridge Avenue in the Bronx. 2848 Bainbridge Avenue in the Bronx from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I'm going to be the keynote speakers. You're going to have other speakers. You're going to have different demonstrations of the martial arts, the different schools of thought. A lot of people think martial arts is just martial arts. There's multiple schools that have multiple different methodologies. And the martial arts isn't just fighting. We're about spirituality. We're about healing. We're about science. All of these things are part of that process. And so at 2848 Bainbridge Avenue at 9 a.m. in the morning to 5 p.m., on the 16th of November, we will be having this fantastic ceremony, and
Now,
all is welcome to come.
James, I want people to come, so I don't want to give them too much. But what are you going to focus based on the connection between Africa and the martial arts, which I've heard you talk about, and I've
Yes,
written about it. As to how it started, how
yeah, we're going to be
Africans
looking
went
at the
to China.
martial arts in ancient Kemet, how it moves into ancient India, how it moves into China and create the Sholan Monastery, and then the rest becomes Asian history. We are going to look at many of the martial arts form. I'm going to try to see how much of I can get that to practice in Southern Africa and West Africa. We had a number of our brothers who would go to Africa every year and participate in the different forms in Senegal, and Mali and Ghana and South Africa. And then we're going to talk about how the Muslim community particularly was a major force for bringing the martial arts into our community. Many of those brothers was in the Nation of Islam, or had just left the nation. Many were still in the nation. All of my first teachers were in the nation. I think my very first teacher was Kenny Lee, downtown. Kenny beat me up one day real bad because I had a beer with a friend before coming to class, and the smell of alcohol. As soon as I walked in, and oof, I was laying on the floor. I had no idea why since they knocked me out.
That's how it was there. Leon Wallace was the person who brought us into place. But you're absolutely right. When I hear you, it brings to mind something that I guess I never really focused on. But many of the teachers, many of the people that were the foundation of at least the Harlem martial arts that I knew of, and universally, were Muslims, or changed their names. Abdul Musawir from Monroe, Maryland. I mean, it didn't hit me as clearly as just now, actually. But when I think about it, the first person who introduced me to the martial arts was Uthman, who was the security for the FOI. He was a trader. Albert. What was Albert's last name? I forget his last name, but Uthman.
I know Brother Albert. Yeah.
He was like our job.
Brother Moses, Brother Littlejohn, Brother Hassan.
Those are the guys
and Muzamir, of course.
Oh man! And Al Johnson, when we call him Uthman. I became like he just liked me. So every place we went, and at that time he was training everybody from in the mosque. Very interesting, quick story about that. Lloyd was the chairman of Community Board 10 at one time. And Lloyd had Lloyd, and there was a new brother who just became the head of the mosque, Ali. God, I forget his name, but he had that more or less Chicago type of gangster flair, and they got into a real serious beef, and some of his guys went out and got some guys from the FOI to come up, and one of the guys, because I was always the one, Lloyd would do the talking, but I was the one that was, ready to, go down. And one of the guys said, wait a minute. That's one of Uthman's guys. We don't want to, and that's how in the martial arts and being in that type of community also allow for us in Harlem Week. Because most of the brothers who did the security for Harlem Week for all of the times that I was there, they were all Muslims. And I had not really thought about that, James, until you brought that up. That's interesting.
Yeah, I studied under Musawiya. I studied under Hassan. I studied under Little John. I had a
Yeah.
little brief stint with Moses. Um, and I went to last year, they were doing a big thing for the retirement of one of the masters in Tai Chi in Brooklyn. And the whole world, every dojo in the Northeast seemed to have showed up that night, including the sisters. Some of the sisters were, whoo, let me tell you. And about 50%, 60% were Muslims. Everybody was saying Salam Alaikum. You know, so we realized even if we were no longer in the mosque, you know,
Right.
that thing still carried over. But it was a great contribution to the community, that community of martial artists brought to our community. The Harlem New Breed, Gerald Orange and the Black Mount Dojo. And, you know, we just, we had a foundation of martial artists that taught all stratas of the wisdom system to us.
Right.
Because a lot of times people don't think of martial arts as a wisdom system. They think only as a fighting system.
Right.
But no, the greater part is the wisdom system. The fighting system is to protect the wisdom carriers.
Right. And it's always been that way. Even at the beginning of the show, you know, going into career and training in the mountains, that was more of the foundation of understanding the stuff that I had learned in the martial arts, but how that foundation was in healing, the same pressure points, the same things that were used, because when the colonizers came over, they weren't, and they could be colonizers from the Mongolians or whoever, they weren't always given all of the information. I learned that from Musa Ware. Musa Ware used to say, they didn't tell them if you do certain things, the four corners, they didn't tell them that was a defensive mechanism. They only told them certain things, but they didn't tell them about how that can preserve their life, how that can help them, how that could, you know. So a lot of people still, some of the schools, as you know, are not focused. They're focused on the trophy, learning how to kick and punch. But when you get down to the spiritual component of it, which I think is another reason why many of the teachers, especially now that I think about it, had that spiritual background based on Islam.
Interesting.
And,
you know, like I studied Shingi for a long time, and that's a system of very way back. This is when I was first getting it. And these were Muslim brothers teaching us in the mosque. And this was about moving energy and not even touching people necessarily. It's moving energy. And so you learn a lot of things. I always recommend to young people, watch Bruce Lee's To Enter the Dragon, but really watch it so you can understand who is the dragon. The dragon is the wisdom system. So if you're entering the dragon, you're entering the wisdom system. But I wouldn't say any more about it, but watch that movie from that perspective, that the dragon is symbolic of the wisdom system. And watch Bruce Lee as he's avenging his sister, and he will expose the wisdom of the system right there in the movies. But if you're not aware that he's talking about a wisdom, you won't get it. You have to pay attention. I'm not going to even tell you what it is. You got to see it in order to understand what is being exposed there. And I always thought that got Bruce in trouble, that he may have given away too much.
That's why they killed him.
Yeah, that he gave away too much.
Yeah, he was giving away a lot of information that he really wasn't supposed to talk about.
Right.
You know, that's pretty much understanding in the martial arts community.
Well, you know, I belong to the Masonic Lodge, and sometimes I get that little phone call, Small, we heard you give that lecture, you know, you had to hold back. You had to hold back a little bit of that. So, yes, sir, brother, I got you, you know.
At some point, we have to talk to you. I have to talk to you about that. I remember, actually, I think it was one of our interviews when I realized that you was a member of the lodge. I always looked at them in a different kind of a way, but actually, when I heard that you were involved, it allowed for me to look at it differently.
As relates to a great contributor to maintaining the ancient wisdom,
and I know that. I mean, I understood that. I think it was just the people that I interfaced with did not have what I thought was the type of
ethical, moral character.
Right.
I had the same problem, and I had to kind of like swallow that to get with the young people so I could teach the young people. And that was my real purpose, to be able to teach some of the things that I've learned from our experiences and helping our people. That's what I try to teach the young people in the lodge, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, a lot of the stuff that I write about is how the Muslims, the Rastafarians, and many other people took that from Kemet.
Absolutely. When I first started, I put out a picture last night of one of my teachers from Ghana. His name is Bafo Akoto. Mm-hmm. He's dead now, but he's the one brother that opposed. He led an army against Nkrumah. Right. But he led an army of Northerners, your people, against Nkrumah. So Nkrumah put him in prison for 15 years. I think Bafo stayed in prison. But somehow I met him, and then he was trying to take me out because he thought I had done something wrong concerning this. And we found a place to meet. Mm-hmm. And one day we were standing in front of his house in Kumasi, and he said, "Small." He says, "You're not one of us." I said, "But so I'm one of you." He said, No. I said, "What I mean is, you're a Northerner." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Your people from the north." We were standing in Kumasi at the time. He says, "You're like my son. I love you, but you're a Northerner." That's what made me start doing the pilgrimages to the north. It was Bafo Akutu.
Yeah, it's
Santa Henny.
I guess my ancestors brought me to the north based on my background and the way things happen. I was attracted to the north, and you're right. There's a different type of a mindset in the north. The colonizers have not been as influential.
No, they haven't.
I went to some markets that they were doing before the colonizers came. Mm-hmm. You know, there are places that you can go in the north that haven't changed.
Haven't changed at all. Even the way housing is constructed in the rural area. There's one place I went to outside of Paga where the house have no windows. They just had slits to shoot their bow and arrows when the slave catchers started hooking up. And the doorway was only 2 to 3 feet tall. You had to get on your knees and crawl in the doorway. So if you try to come in there, you're going to lose your head. The opening was on the roof, 2 or 3 stories up, to get fresh air and refresh yourself. And that's how they protected themselves. You know, so they never got conquered because they set up this whole village that was literally a fortress.
And that's one of the things I there's a measure of excitement in going in December to see this village in the Savannah area of Manule. That's the name of the village. Mm-hmm. And there's and Manule got his name because there's this mystical battle that took place between the North and similar to what you were talking about as far
there was the Ashanti Nation. That was
right. And the battle was so severe that the whole country, it turned upside down. And there's a feeling that there's still people underground who live here. You know, that's that whole mindset. But there were some fierce battles between each other based on concept, and some dealing with the colonizer. You know, the same story. It hasn't changed. It's just that we are beginning to have an understanding that we were all being used and still are as pawns on, you know, a bigger board, which is why it's important for us to understand. But now more than ever, James, you know, Pan-Africanism, as you know, and as I learned from you and many others, is something that has been going on for a long period of time. But sometimes something that is old becomes new based on the environment that it's found itself in.
Yes,
and then I believe that we're in that time now.
I think so. I agree with you.
Many of the
redefinition too. We need to bring a new, expanded definition to what it means to be a Pan-Africanist.
Probably. Probably.
Yeah. Listen, I'm married to a woman born in Aruba, a mama born in Trinidad, a daddy born in St. Martin. Right? And my great grandma is from Sierra Leone, and great grandpa is from Uganda, and grandparents and parents is from South Carolina, Gullah Geechee Bowl. That's about as Pan African as you're gonna get, right? So yeah.
But yeah, it's there are many things that I believe that will put there's a yin and yang in everything. So wherever we are now is based on God's will, and we've been pivoting for such a long time that being able to pivot is not difficult for us, which is why when you look at what was happening with the Trump and all of the people in the streets, they say, "Where are the black people?" And we've been there before. It's your turn.
Yeah,
Now you see what we were talking
and,
about.
Yeah, we're gonna go on the background and take a break, and y'all gonna hit the front line for a minute.
Right, because we get the front lines to get you where you are.
Yeah.
The women's rights and the gay rights and all of those types of things. That's on our back. So now that's being attacked. We set the foundation, and you got it.
Yeah, and you know what's worrying them, Tony? I just saw a piece yesterday where over 70,000 Americans are applying for jobs. This is according to the State Department in Africa. And we going like, what are you talking about? And if this is 70 million, we can almost double that to get to the real number. But at least the State Department is admitting the 70,000, I'm sorry, Americans have in the last year made application for jobs in some part of Africa or another.
Well, James, we are almost done here. Before we go, please give the address of where you're going to speak on Sunday, November the 16th.
Yes, sir. That address is 2848 Bainbridge Avenue in the Bronx, New York, near Yankee Stadium. 2848 Bainbridge Avenue at the Servian Hall from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. 2848 Bainbridge Avenue, the Bronx, New York, the Servian Hall. I look forward
There's
to seeing
a number that I have here. 929-243-6816.
Yes, sir. That's the number.
Thank you, James Smalls. We have to do this more often, brother. I need to talk to you because I need to get some information before we go to Ghana in December.
I'm trying to get to Ghana in December too, so give me your dates and let's see. Maybe
I'll be there. We'll be there from the 6th to the 14th. Actually, I'm staying over about a day or so because I never really have seen a beach in Ghana. I've always been in the north, so I'm going to spend a day.
Some of the most beautiful beaches in the world.
I'm going to spend a day to kind of
look I'll be coming in as you're going out. I'm coming in, I think, somewhere between the 14th and the 16th.
Okay. Well, but we'll talk. And
okay, my brother.
And it was wonderful. Thank you. Give my regards to the family, and thanks again. And we'll have you back on because these conversations are conversations that are probably more important now than they ever was.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, then. Take care, Professor James Smalls. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, my brother. Peace
and
blessings.
Take care. Bye. And again, thank you, Soul City, Jazz, and Matt for providing the platform to be able to have real conversations. We'll be back next week. Next week is going to be an interesting time, and we have a couple of openings and a number of other things happening that we'll probably talk about. So it should be an interesting, well, I would like to think all of the shows are interesting, but next week may be a very special time because we'll be reporting on a number of things that are taking place, especially in the Harlem area. So this is Tony Rogers, your host for Urbanology, the Art of War, signing off, and thanks for listening. Take care.
This is Kier Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.